Once you've created a base for your basket, it's time to start creating walls. Walls are made using the same pattern of 8 wraps, 2 stitches. The only difference is where you're stacking your coiling cord. So up until this point, we've been putting our coiling cord right to the outside of the last row, which has created this big flat plate-like base for our bowl. To make our walls go up, instead of stacking the coiling cord directly to the outside of our row, we're going to start to stack the coiling cord on top of our previous row. So depending on how close to the very center of the top row you stack these, it's going to change the direction of the walls of the bowl. So if I take this row and stack it directly on top of this previous row, I will get a wall that goes straight up. So I'm going to continue doing my 8 wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now to create my wall, I'm going to put my coiling cord on top of my last row instead of to the outside of it. And I'm going to stitch. I'm still stitching through the same place that I would have been stitching had I been continuing to make a flat spot. So I'm still stitching together 2 rows, the row that I'm wrapping and the row underneath it. And then I would continue my 8 wraps. If you have white space, just slide that down. Stack it directly on top. And stitch once, twice to anchor. And then continue your 8 wraps. So here you can see now that the start of my wall is going to rise up. So depending on how close to center you stack this next row, you'll start creating the edges of your basket. You have a few choices for shape when creating your basket. Your basket can go out, it can go up, or it can go in, or it can do any combination of. So depending on how you stack and create the sides of your basket, it will give you different shapes to the outside of your bowl. So once you decide what kind of shape you want, that's how you're going to decide how big your base is going to be. So for this basket, you can see in my right hand here, this one goes more straight up. It has a slight curve at the bottom, but mostly straight up. And this one has a bigger base. When you're creating your basket, if you want to go out, you can start with a smaller base. And here you can see the size of these two. So the tops of the baskets are pretty close in size, but the bases are much different. This one is a lot smaller than the base of this gray bowl here, because if the basket is going to go out and you plan on going out the whole way, the basket is going to get gradually larger as it goes up. So you don't need to have as big of a base if you're going to go out. If you're planning on going up or in, you want to have a slightly larger base because the edges of the bowl will not be growing bigger as it goes. So the size of the base is pretty much the size of the bowl that you're getting. So as you're working with your coiling cord, you're going to continue to stitch your 2 rows together, 8 wraps, 2 stitches, 8 wraps, 2 stitches, holding those rows together and stacking your coiling cord up to create the sides of your basket. The more to the outside of the last row that you stack, the sides will gradually grow out. If you stack them directly on top of the row before them, they will grow straight up. And if you stack them and stitch them slightly to the inside of the last row, that will create that curve to the inside. So for this one, you can see this one goes out, so stacking slightly to the outside until we got to this row. And then I switched to inside, so I stacked it slightly to the inside of the last row for the last 3. And this last one I actually almost tucked straight to the inside to create that lip around the edge of the bowl. So the shape is completely up to you. When you're creating yours, you can do any combination of out, in, up, and create the shape that you want for your basket.